Hi, I'm Darren, and I'm going to take you on a little tour of my in-progress nerdy project, my battlemech cockpit. Come this way. So we're just coming through the laundry room here. I have a door into the basement, and this is my little fortress of solitude. You can see that I have a sizable miniature painting setup. You're going to see a lot of battlemechs here. I'm a huge fan of Battletech, and I have this heretofore useless place underneath the stairs, which I've decided to turn into something a little special. So I've got a couple of monitors here, and they pull out so that I can sit here and do my work. I run a small business. And then underneath and tucked in behind under these stairs is the beginnings of the battlemech cockpit. So what we've got here is a sizable 34-inch Samsung curved monitor. I got a CH Pro rudder set, a throttle on this side. This is where I will use my joystick. I'll show you in a moment what I'm doing regarding that. I have a microphone hooked up at the moment. This is my Neuro helmet, okay? Work in progress, but you can see it's a headset so I can hear. And then these got these funny thing on the side. This is a homemade head tracking system. So there's 3 infrared LEDs that I put in there. That's a 3D printed piece, and it's got a battery pack that mounts on top. And then over top of the TV, there's a infrared webcam there. And if there's a piece of software called OpenTrack that'll pick up those infrared LEDs and give me an option for head control as I'm moving around my head while I'm playing. The seat that I've got here, I scavenged out of a scrapyard. It's from a like early 90s Volvo. I've got it built up on casters here. The nice thing about the seat is it's comfortable. It's from a luxury-ish car, and so it's got a lot of adjustments, but it's old enough that all the adjustments are not electronic. So it has tilt and tilt and tilt, and can, well, the casters give it a new sliding ability. It's got adjustable lumbar support in it. And one of the downsides of having a seat this luxury is I'm building bass shakers to shake the heck out of myself while I'm in the cockpit. It's been a little difficult to get them mounted on this seat in such a way that the wonderful padding doesn't absorb at all, but I've had some luck by mounting them to the actual metal chassis rather than the pads themselves. Here you can see an uninstalled bass shaker. So this is a speaker, also up from a scrapyard out of the back of a Toyota. And what I've done here is you can see that the cone itself has been cut away in there, and there's a bolt that is epoxied into the dust cap over top of the voice coil, and comes all the way up here, and then it's, contained in this plywood. There's this metal strapping that goes across either side as well. And what that does is gives it some counterweight. And so when I'm playing this through my speakers, the sound is very quiet. Obviously, I've eliminated a lot of the ability of this speaker to make sound, but with the counterweight to restrict and fight against the vibrations, as well as through manipulating some software in my system that'll, like a subwoofer, where only the low frequency audio signals will be sent to this thing. It makes almost no noise, but causes a shaking and a vibration. So this one is going to be mounted somewhere into the back of the chair over here. There's a big heavy metal plate right down here, so I'm looking at getting a tool and die set so that I can actually take this bolt here and thread it right in so it can shake some of the metal parts. There is one currently mounted under there. It's actually, at the moment, it's just squeezed between the slide control bar and the seat itself, but it's right up against metal. That one shakes pretty well. There's also another bass shaker made from a little smaller speaker that's under this side panel, and one on the opposite side, so that where my mouse and my joystick are mounted, I can feel that shaking as well. I'd like to put one over there underneath the rudder sticks as well, and then everything that I'm touching while I'm playing Mechwarrior or Flight Simulator is going to shake. As far as the hardware that I use to achieve that, I've got an amplifier set up here. It's just an old 90s receiver. There's nothing very special about it. It's 5-point surround sound, not 5.1 mind you, just a 5-speaker surround sound receiver with Dolby capabilities. Not that I'm playing it that way. I'd like to build 5-point surround sound into this system, but I have neighbors and a wife and a daughter who like to sleep sometimes, and so most of this is going to be done with the more or less silent bass shakers, as well as sound pumped through my headphones. So the bass shakers are fed through that amplifier, and I've got a low pass filter to take out the high frequencies. And then my headphones is where I'm listening to my regular sound. This is the joystick that I'm working on. So the specific game that I like to play, the Mechwarrior games, they tend to work. They tend to be much easier to play with a mouse than with a joystick. But I can't quite stand the idea of being in a simulator that I'm building and using a mouse. It just doesn't feel right. So I'm putting quite a lot of work to try and make a joystick do what I want it to. So this is a CH fighter stick. It's a model of an F-16 joystick, and what I'm doing is I'm actually replacing this is the original board that comes with it, with the CH firmware on it, and I'm leaving all the buttons connected to this. But as far as the axes on the gimbal, I am taking those and I'm actually rerouting them. Right now I'm just prototyping, so I've got it in a breadboard, but I've got a Arduino Leonardo clone, so that's a USB controller, and this is a 10-bit controller as opposed to the original 8-bit. So the 8-bit's only got 256 levels that it can output, so it's not very sensitive. This is 10-bit, so we're up to 1028, and I'm testing out if that's enough. What I'm doing with this joystick is I'm trying to turn it into a zero-order controller. So the way that joysticks are supported out of the box in these games is the farther you deflect the joystick from the center, it controls the velocity of your mouse cursor's movement across the screen. So the farther I deflect it, the faster the mouse moves. And let's say I'm trying to target something. If I overshoot it, then in order to move my mouse the other direction, I have to go all the way back across the axis, where the mouse will now stop moving, and then move it to the left, where I'll begin to accelerate the mouse in the other direction. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to behave more like a mouse itself does, where a certain deflection to the right corresponds to an absolute spot on the screen. Will just take it to a certain deflection, take the mouse to a certain deflection to the right and stop there. And in the case of like piloting a battlemech, which is kind of like a tank with legs, it would be turning the torso or turning the turret a certain distance and then stopping, as opposed to controlling the velocity. Now, it's a little tricky to do that, and so what I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to take the mouse, and by coding the Arduino, I'm trying to get my computer to recognize the axes on the joystick as a mouse instead of a joystick. And I'm hoping that I'm clever enough to figure out how to code it so that it behaves the way I want. That's an open project. Hey, so now we're in the cockpit itself. As you can see, right now I've got curtains that can enclose me in, and the one over there will pull over as well. So I have an opportunity to hide myself away. I'll turn on some additional light in the meantime so you can see my pretty face. It's a pretty cozy spot, and I found myself watching some movies and stuff here when I'm checking stuff out on my own because my seat shakes, and action movies are a real howl down here, and the screen is nice and big when you're sitting this close to it. My wife does worry about my eyes. I keep telling her monitors are different than TVs. This is fine. I'm going to take you through a little bit of the software that I'm using. So first of all, the game that I'm primarily playing is this here. This is Mechwarrior Online. I would really like this cockpit to be tuned to run all the various Mechwarrior games. But one at a time. So I was talking about a low pass filter for the bass shakers. Now I'm running all the audio on my computer through this program here, Voice Meter. And Banana is one step up from the base package. It's donationware, so you can download it and try it out for free. I haven't donated yet, but it's terrific software, and I would like very much to do that. This gives me a lot more control over my inputs and outputs for sound than anything in the operating system itself, so that I can take the sound from the game and I can send it to my headphones with its full audio, with its full frequency range, so I can listen to the game the way it's intended to be listened to, but I can also send all the audio from the game to my amplifier, which is then sending it to the left and right channels, which I'm running to my bass shakers. And you can see here, I know, shouldn't I just be doing screen caps of my desktop if I were smarter and had more time? Yes, but I have my control that outputs the headphones on this line, and then my control that has the bass shakers is on this line. You'll notice this EQ is lit up, and you can see the EQ profile that I'm sending to my bass shakers. I've got a roll off starting in around 40 or 50 hertz here, so there's very little audible audio going to my bass shakers, and it's just that bassy shake that is happening. And then with this, I can even go so far as set up a secondary input for my in-game chat, so that isn't being sent to my bass shakers, and I don't have to feel my bassy friends shaking my butt. I just get regular audio on them. This has been an invaluable piece of software to avoid having to actually build physical low-pass filters and do a whole bunch of extra math to figure out what sort of voltage drop those are going to be, and to not overload my amplifier. This piece of software here, this is called Matrix. And this is a $10 app that I got for my phone. And what it does is it's what I'm using to prototype button boxes for my smartphones. Now, I would like eventually to have physical boxes like you see in airplanes with toggles and light up switches and backlighting and labels that control my different visual modes and maybe some targeting details. I think it would be really fun to mimic some of the ways that battlemech cockpits look on the covers of the RPG books or in the artwork, but I don't know what to build yet. And for now, this piece of software here, I can create different decks that end up on my smartphone and give them all sorts of controls that let me, oh, this is a bad example because I haven't done anything on this one. Okay, forget it. Let's go back to the other one. So you can see right here in this corner, this is a deck that I actually downloaded. Somebody else built it, but it has controls, and those are all going to show up on my smartphone. And when my smartphone is connected by Wi-Fi to my computer, I can actually hit those buttons on my smartphone, and they'll have in-game effects. And there's a lot of flexibility here. I can actually, I've got my Mechwarrior Online password, because I can never remember it, saved to this power up button. So every time I'm starting the game, I can hit that button on my phone and it'll log me in. I also, because I've got 3 monitors going with my business setup, it's a pain in the ass to switch everything around and confirm. And because one's under here and 2 are out there, it asks me to approve the changes, and I have to rush into the computer that I'm changing things to. Anyways, now I just have some buttons that are run through an app called Monitor Switcher, and I can hit one button and go to SimPit view, and another button and go out to battlemech view. So Matrix has been invaluable for testing out controls before I start actually building physical boxes and helping with my setups. As far as my Neuro helmet goes, I am using this piece of software here called Open Track in order to run that. And I'm not wearing my headset right now, but it's going to pick up those infrared LEDs. And if I hold this out here, there it is. See, these LEDs, they don't shine off any lights whatsoever, but you can see on the screen as my camera is beginning to pick them up, they show up there, and they're going to turn that little octopus head around. Now it's not calibrated because it's not in the right spot, but in game that actually translates to my head movement. So if I turn my head in the game, I can actually start looking outside my side windows, and that's been really cool. The last piece of software that is really important to this whole setup so far is Joystick Gremlin. Joystick Gremlin creates a virtual joystick and can take all my various inputs and recombine them into a single controller. Gives me lots of additional refined control over how everything is read in the game and export them to this virtual device. It lets me do some coding and how things are achieved. One thing that was really important to me to figure out is with these rudder pedals here in the Battletech Fiction, you move your battlemech, you can turn your battlemech with these rudder pedals, but they always describe when people want to take to the air and jump, jamming down on both their pedals at the same time. And these don't come out of the box with any sort of specific signal that they'll send if you do that. So I couldn't map that function to trigger jump jets when I push down on both at the same time without a certain little bit of coding. And Joystick Gremlin let me build those triggers and controls and conditions so that I have to jam on both of them in order to trigger my jump jets in the game. So that's the majority of the setup so far already. It's fun to play and it's shaking. I'm still playing with the mouse because the joystick is really hard to win with. I'm not concerned about ever being a really competitive player, but I'd like to feel a little better than useless. And there's lots more to go. I'd like to get this place enclosed. I want to build up the Neuro helmet to be an actual full helmet that goes around and sets down on my shoulders. I mean, a fantasy would be to someday put a couple of 1,000-watt space heaters in here that'll follow the heat track of my battlemech and really sweat me out in glycol loops in a vest. And that's a ways down the road, but that's what I really love about this project is I'm in no rush to complete it, and I get to put her away on little bits at a time, and soon I'll be a real mech warrior. Thanks for coming on this tour. Feel free to fire any questions my way. I'm slow to answer these things because it is a hobby, not my main thing, but I'm happy to when I can. All right, bye.